Good morning, everyone. Fire is a theme in our memes this morning. And, this is the House of Commons and, Parliament buildings. And on one side is the ethics dumpster fire. And on the other side is the finances dumpster fire. Yes, accurate. And here's another one. Here's Captain Trudeau in his paper yacht, his cardboard yacht. And he says, "Relax, I got this under control," while the yacht is on fire. And one of the fires is named COVID-19, but there are other fires that are raging, and he's in the ocean or lake of economic crisis. And yep, I think that's accurate. Another crisis is our parliamentary crisis. I talk a lot about, or I have been talking a lot about, not changing the rules of Parliament, because if you change the rules of Parliament, you lose control of Parliament, right? Like, the rules change. Up till now, you have history to say, in the past, we did it like that. We should do it like this, the same way now. But COVID-19 is pushing Parliament to be virtual, and everybody seems just okay with that. No problems at all. Everything will be the same, right? Not so much. Not so much the same. I don't think so. If you're in person, you can push this. If you're muted by computer, well, sorry about your luck, man. Sorry about your luck. Pierre Poilievre says, "Liberal chair suddenly and without authority muted the audio and then turned off the Zoom meeting to halt my finance committee motion on the WE cover-up." Now, you would think that he would just reconvene the meeting, right? He would say, well, I guess we all got disconnected, send a quick email out, say, except to the former chair who shut this down, and say, I'm assuming chairship of this meeting and we will continue. And here's the Zoom meeting link that we're going to continue. Or does it have to be on the same link, right? If they're going to rewrite the rules, Mr. Poilievre, you should rewrite the rules too. Reconvene your meeting as the chair. Simple. Here it is. This is egregious. This is unbelievable. Okay? Here we go.
Noted.
Mr. Chair, point of order. 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 You point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Suspended.
Point of order. You do not have authorization to shut down the meeting. You do not have majority to do that.
I have the authorization.
You cannot.
Pierre, I'm not going to argue with you. I have the authorization to suspend the meeting, and I am suspending the meeting.
Have the courage to hold a vote.
I am suspending the meeting, and when we deal with this motion, Pierre, we will deal with it properly.
Have the courage to hold a vote.
So the
Don't shut us down.
The meeting is suspended.
No, you can't shut us down. The meeting goes on without you. I will be happy to take on the chair. The meeting will continue going on, and I will begin by taking a list. Does anybody wish to be on the list in order to speak?
Madam Clerk,
do we have any speakers?
I'm ordering it suspended.
I will.
I'm looking at the status.
Miss Jensen, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Yes, I'm very, very concerned about
how... you do not have the floor, Miss Jensen. I am the chair. I ordered the meeting be suspended.
Mr. Easter, you're out of order. You are out of order. You are out of order. You've removed yourself from the meeting.
As I sort out that this is...
So the rest is censored, and interesting, right? I don't know why or what the particulars are around Mr. Poilievre not reconvening the meeting. I'm sure that he's got a reason. Maybe the reason is explained in this censored discussion here. But this is egregious and very concerning. So when you agreed to let the rules of the House of Commons be rewritten, you agreed to, fly by the seat of your pants at the whims of the Liberal government, backed up by the fourth party who lost half their seats, Jagmeet's NDP. That's where we are. I mean, I don't know what else to say, right? Like, this is democracy in so much that a majority of Canadians voted for the two parties that are holding our government hostage and not letting anybody talk about anything regarding the WE scandal or all of the controversies that this Trudeau government have engaged in over the past 5 years, multiple years, right? And we've seen ejections of multiple well-respected cabinet ministers, up to and including Will Ferrell lookalike and McCain Foods heiress marrying Bill Morneau. But it doesn't seem to matter, right? Like, oh, well, that's enough. There you go. And Barty's Chagger's on the block, right? If the WE scandal continues to go, Barty's Chagger will be the next one to be offered up to the gods, or to the electorate. But the two people who should be being held accountable, Ms. Freeland and Mr. Trudeau, the two people who are charting this course into using this crisis, this created crisis, because it's the government that's locking people down. They're not letting businesses take their own risk. They're not letting businesses assess their own risk. If you're a business and you want to open and say, I'll abide by, rules, but let me open and let people come to my business who feel comfortable coming to my business, and, let them abide by the rules of the country, and that if they have a mask exemption, I'm not going to badger them, right? If they come in wearing no mask. Anyway, we're well past real representation at this point in time. And here's Jagmeet Singh. This is a little segment. I know there's a lot of video this morning, and we're going to get into kind of, this is more focused on the federal stuff, and then I've got like 5 or 6 stories that I just find interesting at the end of the show today. But this is a little segment about Jagmeet Singh, and it ends with, this is an NDP from British Columbia, Don Davies, and he's talking about holding the Liberals accountable for their spending during COVID-19. Okay? Keep that in mind as we listen to the questions and answers here.
About this, and it does seem to me that you're suggesting a moral element in all of this. I'm trying to understand whether you think that it is like morally inappropriate that grocery stores, which understandably are seeing more business because people aren't out at restaurants as often as they were, and they were stockpiling and whatnot, that you think that there is something morally suspect about them making greater profits because people are buying more food.
Well, what's morally suspect is those same large grocery stores cutting the pay for workers while they're making a profit.
You mean cutting the hero pay, for lack of a better term? Yes.
Absolutely.
Rather than just cutting their base pay, yes.
Right. They've made massive profits. They should have continued with that support. They should have continued to support the workers who are putting themselves on the front line. But more so, I think it's morally wrong if the wealthiest in our country expand their wealth even more so during this time, which is what the evidence shows, that the richest Canadians have gotten wealthier during the pandemic. If that's the case, I think that's wrong. That should not be the case. What we want to see happen is the pain of this pandemic shouldn't be only on working class people and small businesses. Those who have seen massive profits should be the ones who say, hey, you've done well, you need to contribute. In some cases.
So that's the NDP's plan. Here's another minute-long video, and again, this is clarifying the NDP's position, and they're proposing to hold the Liberals accountable. At what point do you become a rich Canadian? At what point? Where? Like, where on the scale? And at what point does the government get to look at your books to see if you've profiteered, right? According to Jagmeet, right? So the problem here is if you start saying it's us versus them, those evil profiting businesses, well, I mean, what's going to happen? Those businesses are going to say it's not worth the market, right? The market's not worth the access price. See you later. And maybe that's good if Walmart walks out of Canada because it's not worth paying Jagmeet's price, right? I don't know. Maybe that's positive for Canadian businesses because they could fill in that gap. And people have complained on the left about places like Walmart shutting down small businesses and downtowns and all that other stuff when they enter the community. But people go to them. People shop at them. The prices are better, right? It is one of those things that competition in the free market has a place in the conversation. This is irresponsible rhetoric, in my opinion, to say it's us versus the big corporations. This is not the right way to do this, especially when you consider how the lockdown got implemented, right? How the lockdown got implemented is government down, top down. It's not because, and at the beginning, people were afraid and people were modifying their behavior. But I think that if people were allowed to go out to restaurants and eat inside and have normal interactions, they'd do it. I go to lunch now, back to my usual lunch conversations about politics, because that's what I do. And I'm back to normal pretty much. Like I'd go out for lunch with the same people that I would go out for lunch with before the pandemic. Anyway, this is irresponsible rhetoric. The us versus them is concerning to hear from Jagmeet Singh. And he's trying to make you think that he's talking to you when he's talking about the small businesses and the poor Canadians, right? Like it's us versus the evil big corporations that are profiting off of this disaster. And I don't know that there's any mechanism that he can use that will do what he's promising. Here we go.
I know you're worried. I know you've felt a lot of pain in this pandemic. If you've got a small business, I know you're worried if you can stay open. Working people, families have felt the impact of COVID-19. You shouldn't have to pay for this. You shouldn't have to pay for the recovery. But while you've been struggling, while your family's been hurting, those at the very top, the ultra wealthy, have profited off the pandemic. Many of them have made record profits. So while you've been struggling, they've been profiting off this pandemic. So what we're saying is, you shouldn't have to pay the cost of the recovery or the cost of this pandemic. Those that profited should. So our plan is to tax the profit. Those that have profited should pay their fair share. They should contribute to building up this country. My friends, you shouldn't have to pay the cost. Those that profited off this pandemic should.
So here's the problem, though. The government is the one that imposed the lockdown. The government is now trying to move the ire of the public from the government who imposed the lockdown to those evil profiteering businesses, right? If you can imagine 3 circles. One circle is, let me see if I can draw this here. I don't know if I can do this. Can I? Oh, one circle is the politicians. We'll put a P in there. And one circle is the evil corporations who actually provided products when other people maybe couldn't, and the frontline workers were seen as heroes, but the evil people who own it, right? They're evil. And then there's us and you, so it'll be a Y. So we're supposed to blame these guys instead of the politicians who implemented the lockdown and destroyed the businesses in the first place. We're supposed to punish the businesses who were able to stay afloat and provide the services and goods that were needed, the supply chain, right? Everything everybody said was really, really important. They were able to continue and do that. And, you know, they were seen as frontline of this COVID fight, right? But now the politicians who implemented the lockdown are saying, get those evil corporations because they profiteered on this. Be careful of who you listen to. Jagmeet Singh, this is very, very, very concerning rhetoric. Let's see if I can clear it. Oh, hey, maybe I'll use that again. Okay, I'll turn off the drawing thing and then we'll move on. Did that work? Okay, I think it did. Perfect. So, and yet the NDP are claiming to want to hold the government accountable for their irresponsible spending. Here's Don Davies, the NDP. I'll give him 40 seconds because why not? Here we go.
Through a targeted throne speech because they agreed to specific measures that we believe millions of Canadians need. But you're right. I mean, I agree that it's not a time for austerity, but it is a time for transparency and accountability. And Tim is correct that this government has had to be watched like a hawk from the beginning. You remember the very first thing they did when they wanted extraordinary powers was they wanted the ability to spend money completely unexamined through the end of 2021. That's what they do when they're not watched. And of course, the WE scandal is a further example of misspending. So we can have both. We can get targeted assistance to Canadians, and we can and should expect transparent, accountable government supported this.
So this NDP is saying that it's time for transparency and accountability, but there's no transparency and no accountability, right? No transparency in the government right now, right? Are you kidding me, Mr. Poilievre? I'm not going to argue with you, Pierre, right? Transparency, accountability? Exactly. Where? When? Right? It was the job of the NDP to side with the CPC and the CPC and the Bloc and bring down this government because they lost the moral authority to govern. From Jody Wilson-Raybould to we to all the scandals in between, Justin Trudeau can't be trusted, and they don't have the talent. All of their senior ministers have been kicked out because the ethics are too brutal, right? See the dumpster fires that started the show, right? So accountability, coming up with a garbage BS subcommittee to look at the erratic spending. And the other part of things here, he says, they wanted a blank check to the end of 2021. When is anybody going to demand a budget? They've had a blank check and they've been spending from a blank check for the last 8 months. And nobody has questioned anything. Where's the budget? Right? That's what the balance of power is supposed to do. Where's the budget? Yeah, we'll support your government. Show us what you're going to do. What are you going to do? Right? You're just going to keep printing money? That's the plan. Okay. So long as you keep printing money and don't give any to the, who's the accountant guy? Hold on. Auditor General. I was thinking AG. Anyway, don't give any money to that guy. So if nobody knows how much money is spent, then nobody can keep track of it, then yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Here's Maxime Bernier. He's running in Toronto, York Centre, and Baljeet Bawa, is running in the other riding. I can't remember the name of the other riding at this point in time, so I apologize. But the 2 by-elections that are happening in Toronto coming up soon. And well, here's Maxime Bernier, and I think this is interesting. It's notable. He's aware of what's going on. He says that I'm probably not going to win, but that's not necessarily the goal of this campaign. So here's Maxime Bernier talking about his by-election competition coming up, and at the end of it, I believe the voting date is October 26th. Here we go.
I'm a realistic person, and I know that the chances I will be elected MP for York Centre are very slim. But that's not the only goal of this campaign. The main goal as a young political party is to continue to reach out to more Canadians, to develop our organization, to consolidate our place as a national party with a distinct voice. We have a fantastic team of volunteers.
I'll leave him there. But at least he's admitting that it's not likely that he's going to win. I hope that following these elections or during these elections, we get a constitution that's rolled out and can move on and move forward with that. But at least he's being realistic, right? These are tough liberal strongholds. And despite the liberals' missteps, as I've talked about before, it seems that people are enthusiastic to vote for them. I don't get it. I don't understand. Here is a question period from Queen's Park. This is, I believe, Randy Hillier asking questions and not getting very good answers. The answers are skipped. This is 2 minutes. I'm gonna play the whole first question, which I think is about a minute. I'm gonna leave the second question. You can check it out on your own. This is concerning. I've seen the requisitions for this. This is concerning. There's no other way to put this. This is concerning. And if we're not watching, it's going to get more concerning. What's happening in Australia is unbelievable right now. Unbelievable. Here we go.
My supplemental question yesterday, I asked this government if the people of Ontario should prepare for internment camps. In September, the federal government posted a call for expressions of interest for contractors to supply, provide, and manage quarantine isolation camps throughout every province and every territory in Canada. These quarantine isolation camps, however, are not limited to people with COVID, but provide a wide latitude for many people to be detained. Surely this government is aware of the intentions to build these isolation camps from coast to coast. And my question to the Premier is, how many of these camps will be built, and how many people does this government expect to detain?
Question.
Again, back to the Premier. Here's the RFP, and in the RFP it uses clear language to express that these camps can be used for a broad spectrum of people, not limited to travellers. Indeed, it doesn't even mention international travellers. It's just a broad latitude of people. And I'll send over the copy of the RFP after.
So presumably, I didn't hear the answer. The answer's not in the video, but presumably Mr. Ford says, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're not planning on building internment camps. But again, I've seen the requisitions. I've seen the postings for these things. So if they're not planning on building it, or if they're not planning on building it, then why are they posting for these things? And if they are planning on building it, then these are valid questions. Why are we building internment camps? Why are we interning large latitudes of people, wide latitudes of people, I think is what he said, a broad latitude of people? Why? The why of it matters. And the why of it is part of the government's job to answer, right? Should we be building these camps? What is the purpose? Are we going to get clear testing? Well, I mean, the PCR tests are as good as a coin flip. Why are we paying for them? They're not accurate. Okay. Here's CP24 reporting Ontario sets new single-day record with 797 COVID-19 cases, also reporting record number of tests completed. So that matters, right? If you increase the number of tests, then you're going to get an increased number of positives, especially when the PCR cycles that we're using are above the threshold for false positives. You're going to get positives. Here is City News, reporting a provincial cabinet meeting has been called for Friday morning at Queen's Park, according to a government source. It's unclear what the meeting is being called for at this point. A lot of speculation that I've seen is Mr. Ford wants to implement targeted lockdowns in Ontario to deal with these spike in cases. But again, the other metrics aren't ticking up to meet the fear, right? Like, here's the Toronto currently hospitalized. It says plus 13, but I looked at this yesterday and it was at 83. So I don't know when they're saying the plus 13 is from. Since yesterday? No, it was at 80. It was at 83, and then before that it was at 79. So like maybe there's like maybe there were discharges and whatever, and this is current hospitalization. But this plus 13 implies that yesterday it was less 13 this number, and that's not true. It wasn't. So maybe there were 13 more people, leaving a total of 89, and yesterday there were 9 more people, leaving a total of 83. But and a few days ago it was 78. Like, the hospital numbers are not increasing at the rate of the positive tests that we're seeing, and that is notable. Here is other information that's notable. Toronto Sun is reporting, and this is October 8th, today is October 9th, Ontario death count includes people who didn't die of COVID-19, but exactly how many is unknown. The daily pandemic death counts in Ontario have included people who have tested positive for COVID-19 but have not necessarily died from the virus. The exact number of people who fit into this category is unknown by the government and not even being counted. The Sun was able to confirm this information after speaking with 3 of the hardest hit public health units in Ontario, Toronto, Ottawa, and Peel region. The mortality data sent to the ministry and reported in Ottawa dashboard reports represents the number of Ottawa residents with confirmed COVID-19 who have passed away, an Ottawa public health spokesperson explained via email. It does not indicate if COVID-19 was the cause of death, and we can't make that inference. According to local health units, this reporting process is required by the province. Quote, Toronto Public Health continues to follow the provincial definition for how COVID-19 deaths are categorized, said Dr. Vinita Dubey, Toronto's Associate Medical Officer of Health. This means that individuals who have died with COVID-19 but not necessarily as a result of COVID-19 are all included in the case counts for COVID-19 deaths in Toronto. Is that accurate? Is that something to base a lockdown on? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Here's Bonnie Crombie. She agrees with me, and I agree with her, which is strange. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie says that she doesn't believe any further restrictions or business closures are warranted in her community at this time, even as the number of COVID-19 infections continues to surge in neighboring Toronto. I was talking with my friend this morning, and again, here's the deaths in hospital. Or no deaths here. The deaths are so bad that they scrubbed that data. You can't know how many deaths. Even with the people who died with COVID-19, but not as a result of COVID-19 moniker, right? Even with that very low bar, we still don't have enough deaths, so they just removed that data. But here's the hospitalization data again. It doesn't back up the need for these lockdowns. And Peel is one of those regions, and Bonnie Crombie is in Peel. So if Ford goes for this, there's going to be a problem. There is going to be a problem. And I feel like there needs to be a group of people, and usually this would be the opposition, but the opposition all wants Ford to lock down. From the Liberal leader currently to the NDP leader, everybody's saying, we've got to lock down. We've got to lock down. Look at these cases. We've got to lock down. And I feel like we need a group of people, not necessarily even vetted group of people, but a group of people who are vying for leadership, possibly a new political party that is organized and planning this, to actually be in opposition to Ford and point out the fact that this is insane, that this doesn't make any kind of sense at all. Here's another Toronto Sun article. It says, opinion. This is an opinion piece. As physicians, mothers, and daughters, we have concerns with COVID-19 rules. As a human person who lives in a free country, I have concerns with COVID-19 rules. They contravene a whole lot of rights and freedoms that should not be contravened, and are not the place of the government to trample all over, regardless of their best intentions. Okay, moving on. Here is the Nunavut Premier, and he strips his minister of a cabinet portfolio over unacceptable social media posts. Do you want to know what he posted? Man, I almost want to run like a poll or a contest or something like that. Of course it's Black Lives Matter. Okay, here we go. Nunavut Premier Joe, I'm not going to try the last name because I'm going to get it really wrong, has stripped the territory's housing minister of his cabinet portfolio over a social media post about the Black Lives Matter movement. A post on Nestor's Facebook page last night said, all lives matter, and criticized Black women for having abortions. The post has since been deleted. My favorite part about this, just like the other Black Lives Matter, or not necessarily Black Lives Matter, but just like the other situation where people were being stripped of their chairships or whatever, we aren't allowed to know what the post said. We have to believe the newspaper's editorialization of what the post said. And you know, newspapers never lie, right? But we're not allowed to know what he said. I wonder what he said about criticizing Black women for having abortions. Did he specifically say, like, Black women shouldn't have abortions, or they have too many abortions? What did he say? Like, what could a cabinet minister possibly put on Facebook, believe that it's okay to go on Facebook as a post that, sure, gets deleted and strips him of his cabinet ministry? But I mean, like, he was somebody that people thought was above board. So what is he posting to prove that he is not, right? I'm interested, just because, I don't believe a word that the news says. Not at all. It's all got to be verified, cross-referenced, see if that thing actually really did happen, right? What happened after the G7, Justin Trudeau? What happened? Was that just a helicopter? Are you sure it was just a helicopter? Never seen anything like it before or since. Anyway, here's Huffington Post. Trudeau hoping for a smooth transition or a clear result from the U.S. presidential. I'm sure he is looking for a clear result. Everybody likes certainty in these uncertain times, right? Right? It's very, very bad when you're very nice to somebody to their face and then you talk trash about them as soon as they leave the G7, and then weird helicopter photos get taken, right? Like, isn't that a weird situation? All of it, right? And when you talk about a smooth transition of power, are you talking like a similar transition of power in 2016 when the Obama administration respected the result of the election and completely evacuated Washington and didn't continue to try and run some kind of, I don't know, shadow presidency or anything like that, right? That's what happened in 2016, right? Everybody in Washington said, this is how our system works, and we all agree to abide by it, and they did everything they were supposed to be, just like you follow all the rules, Mr. Trudeau, with regards to elections, right? And campaigning and stuff. You said it yesterday, I follow all the rules, right? Not like those darn conservatives, right? I hope everybody understood what I was saying there. Here's the kind of hodgepodge to finish us off. What have I got? 26 minutes. Oh, all right. 4 more minutes. Yeah, it won't be too long. I was having a conversation with another friend of mine this morning about plastics and banning plastics, and he said it was a net good. And I said, do you know how much plastic from Canada, like Canada produces, that ends up in the ocean? And he said, it's less than 1%. Or I said it's less than 1%. And then he told me that it was 0.3%. And I said, so we're going to ban plastics in Canada and saddle businesses with the cost of going green, right? For more expensive bamboo or more expensive plates, cutlery, all of that stuff costs more when you go green, right? Same way, wedding photography is more than just photography, right? Greening is more expensive than just buying bamboo forks. We're going to do that to small businesses so that 99.97% of plastic is completely untouched. Right? Like, it's the same thing as the carbon tax. Let's just throw all our money at the carbon tax, and then maybe global warming will be solved. Like, it's wrong-headed and stupid. Why do Canadians need to suffer? Why? Nobody can explain this to me. Oh, it's a net good. It's not a net good. Can you believe this? Have you guys seen this? Okay, not only did they sell fridges to none of it, right? Fridges and freezers to none of it. The fridges and freezers are powered by solar power. Catherine McKenna is tweeting, a great first step towards sustainable energy in Nunavut with federal funding for regulatory approval of a solar array to power the community freezer that will improve the quality of life for residents of, I'm not going to say that, and build cleaner, healthier communities. Yeah, so, I mean, a freezer's good. Isn't there that old adage of selling an icebox to an indigenous person, a northern indigenous person? Right? Isn't that the old kind of like, if you're a good salesman, you could do that? Not only did we sell them the icebox, we sold them solar power to power the icebox. I feel a little icky, right? Like, that's a little icky for the government of Canada to do. A little sleazy, a little car salesman-y, right? Like sales cars. Remember the guy in True Lies? He pretended to be the spy? Like him. Okay, Scott Moe, a re-elected Saskatchewan Party government will significantly lower the cost of ambulance calls for seniors, boost the monthly seniors income plan benefit, and hire 300 new continuing care aides for home care and long-term care facilities. Yesterday, I was lamenting that the BC Liberals, I think it was the BC Liberals, were promising just to give you $1,000. We will give you $1,000 if you vote for us. And I said, is it really just like giving things to people? Is that what politics has become? Yes. The answer is emphatically yes. 100%. That is all politics is. So my earlier wish of people to stand up and say, this is insane, we can't do this, there's a better way, we should follow this model, blah, 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 blah. That's garbage. They're not promising anything, right? All they're promising is better governance. And that's just not really, that's not material enough for our current electorate, right? Our current electorate's like, yeah, but what are you going to give me? Freedom? That's not quite good enough. What if I get offended? What if my feelings get hurt? What if people say things that I don't like and I can't then shut them down? Pierre Poilievre notes, government admits government and Bank of Canada's actions make us more vulnerable to economic shocks down the road. Yes, we're very vulnerable right now. We're leveraged. So like, pretend your structure's here and we're way out over here. And yeah, we're over leveraged, and it's very, very problematic. And there's no end in sight to the spending that they're going to do. Somebody mentioned the lumber and the amount of the cost of jobs. Like if you're in construction or if you're in home improvement or anything like that, if you're building decks or if you're building right? The lumber costs have skyrocketed. And I hadn't been paying attention to this. I work online a lot, so I don't go to hardware stores very often. And hearing that the cost of lumber has increased and then seeing this, I think it's worthwhile to note that these are the consequences of the choices that our government is making. There are consequences to the bad governance that we've been receiving, and the consequences are now showing up in costs to finish jobs, costs to start jobs, even the ability to quote jobs, even the ability to get goods to complete these things that used to be, I won't say easy, because the soft lumber and all lumber hasn't been easy in Canada for a very long time. And I'm not an expert in this topic in this area. I just know the softwood disputes have been ongoing for years. I'd say almost decades, right? 1990s probably, if not before. And so this doesn't help. The real consequences are showing up, and if you can't see them, well, you're going to. It's going to show up. You are going to see it. If it's not already showing up on your bill already. And I mean, food, look at the prices of food. I've been paying attention. And yeah, it's expensive. I was at Zayre's yesterday, and our meat wasn't as expensive as I'd seen out in Winnipeg, but I didn't price out the beef. I was looking at pork, so take it for a grain of salt. Last story for this morning, daylight savings time could become permanent in Ontario. That means we wouldn't roll the clocks back in November. It's scheduled to go up November 1st, to do our daylight savings time yearly dance. But this law would permit synchronizing with New York State and Quebec. So if New York State and Quebec decide to not roll their clocks, then we'll do it. But we're putting on the books any time in the next XYZ, right? Like, so they're basically creating the law to bring us into compliance while also signaling that we're willing to do it. So, I mean, that's good. It was on BC's electoral platform as well. The Liberals are promising it there. Saskatchewan doesn't do it at all, which is nice. That's nice for them. So, I think it's a good idea. I don't necessarily think that we should be changing our clocks all the time, but, who knows? Who knows what's best or better for our current society. But certainly not me, but I think this would be better. I think that it would be better, just personally. All right, that's enough out of me. And thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful